Welcome to Astro Chat with Anne Sundell, Kimberly Williams, and Monica Anna. We are three professional astrologers living in three separate countries, coming together every new and full moon to share our 3 points of view on astrology. Whether you enjoy deep dives into the current transits or you are just beginning to learn about astrology for the first time, there is a place for you here. All that is required is an appreciation for astrology, along with a respect for the various traditions within it. So grab a mug of coffee, your favorite cup of tea, or any other beverage of your choice, and join us for a chat on the astrology of the next 2 weeks. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our bi-weekly Astro Chat. Today it is myself, Kimberly Williams, and Monica Anna coming to you to talk about the upcoming new moon in Virgo. Ooh. We're going to be looking at a new moon in Virgo happening here in the States, Central Time Zone, on the 14th of September, 8:39 in the evening. And over across the pond in the UK, that'll be on the morning of the 15th. At 2:39 a.m. and in Finland 4:39 a.m. Wherever you guys live, feel free to convert that to your time zone, and hopefully we will all be enjoying this lunation together. It's going to be happening at 21 degrees of Virgo, and we're going to be looking at both the new moon and those aspects happening there, as well as what major transits we see occurring in the 2 weeks following. Some highlights of what might be coming up and may be important for you. Feel free to look at your own natal charts if these dates are significant. We have the new moon on the 14th or 15th, and hours afterwards, Mercury will station direct, but remain in its post shadow till the end of the month. We also see on the 15th that Ceres, the asteroid, the great mother asteroid, will enter Scorpio. A couple days later on the 19th, the annual Sun opposing Neptune happens. And on the 24th, Mars will oppose Chiron. We may talk about some of those, but not all of them, so feel free to look and see what's important to you. Before we dive in, as always, please, 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 if you haven't already done so, click the subscribe button. It really helps us out with our channel. And if you want to be notified the next time we're back, which will be close to the 29th of the month, when we talk about the full moon in Aries, hit the notification bell so you can be reminded, because we come out about once every 2 weeks. So that said, I think we're going to start off by talking about the Sabian symbol. Even though Anne is not here with us today, she is busy doing amazing things with her school of astrology. I know we mentioned before, but they just had their first class graduate. And I saw on some of the Facebook posts that there's some upcoming workshops happening, lots of exciting things, new semester in full swing. So, Anne, we miss you. Yay. Can't wait to hear about all the exciting September happenings you're involved in the next time we get together. But of course, now she's got me hooked on Sabian symbols. I'm having to look at them all the time. And when I looked up the Sabian symbol for 22 to 20, I'm sorry, from 21 to 22 degrees of Virgo, yeah, here we go. It is a royal coat of arms that has been enriched with royal stones. We were having an interesting discussion before we started recording, Monica and I, about the meanings, the implications, and also some of the shadow that can spring from this. For me, when I first read this, I instantly thought about every time I go to an event that is cultural here in the US, there's such a fascination of where my people came from, of the genealogy of the, are my people Scottish or Mexican or from Costa Rica or where? And if it's at all European, there's often a focus on what is the coat of arms for my family surname and how am I part of that bigger lineage. But I know, Monica, you were sharing some of the how it feels for you. Do you want to kind of add to that? What we were talking about earlier?
I think, I mean, I was looking at the shadow of that because it's very easy to see, the coat of arms and the great family history. So very often with that, we romanticize the past, and we don't see, or not necessarily see straight away, the privileged that certain family lines, had in the past. Um, and For me, looking at the past, looking especially at your family line, there's few things to that. One is if you have been, in a privileged position, and you have brought certain gifts and certain qualities through your family line. What is it that you can do with those to serve those around you? We're talking about new moon in Virgo. So again, being of service, um, being a noble person, the aristocracy on a side, but having that nobility of the character basically means you're a good person. Can you bring that forth? Can you bring that nobility that is in your family line? That is, not necessarily in the coat of arm, not necessarily in um special history of the family, but the history of the family characters, the strong, noble, loyal, hardworking people, creative people, that you have, that you can look back to. I think the shadow side of looking back into our family lines, it's for me is the same as the shadow side of doing the regression therapy. Everyone wants to be Cleopatra or Julius Caesar. Everyone wants to have an aristocratic family background. No one's going to be saying that, yeah, my ancestors actually didn't do much. Like, no one wants to know that, right? So that's the shadow. But for me, I think when we're talking about that coat of arms, when we're talking about the Sabian symbol, and when we were discussing earlier, it's looking into the past, whether it's through regression or through just a family history, looking into the past and seeing what gifts am I bringing into this life? What gifts did my family give me? Do I have a lot of creative energy in my family? Do I have a lot of energy that supports one another? Do I have a lot of energy that, there was a lot of hardworking people, and I am one of those as well. So I can push myself when I go for my goals, and also looking, again, not being afraid of looking into the karma that we bring, the curses, if you will. I'm doing the air quotes here. The curse of the family bloodline. What is it that um what is it that is in our history, um that we don't want to bring forward, that we don't want to carry on? Every family has the story. Oh, we're not the business people, or we're not really smart people, or we're not really good with money people. And those stories are sitting there underneath your skin, being fed by your mom and your grandma and the grandma before her. Can you actually shake that off? Can you actually work with that, um, to create a different story for yourself and for the people who will come after you?
Yeah. It really goes back to that embracing the Virgo energy here, right? As you had mentioned to me earlier, we have to use discernment, such a Virgo skill, and think about what is the lineage I have inherited? Is it people of privilege? Is it people who abused power? It was people who felt powerless. What parts of my lineage do I take pride in and I want to accept? What parts do maybe I not and not want to carry forward? So it's that discerning what I will accept and carry on and add to. And then it's also that moving forward, how will I add those precious stones to this how will I rise to being a noble, soulful, conscious being, and what am I going to add to? And I know that for me right now, with some of the energies in the environment, it can be hard for me to rise to my higher self, to acting and responding to the world from a place of nobility, from a place of, I don't mean nobility in terms of power or privilege, but nobility in terms of that inner sense of being a true, just, noble person, kind of going back to the essence of the meaning of that word. So yeah, this There's so much that one can unpack looking at the Sabian symbols, and I love the conversations we have, but let's not hog up the entire, because I could. Let's not hog the entire hour talking about that and move into talking about the Virgo new moon. If you want to kick us off there,
Yeah.
Monica, go for it.
Well, again, Virgo New Moon is literally just doing that, right? It brings that discernment for us. We start a new season, new monthly cycle in Virgo, and Virgo very much is about health and well-being. And for me, that's a really wide way of like wide net that I'm catching that. Because it's not just health and well-being of my body, but it's also health and well-being of my emotions, health and well-being of my work, on what I provide, the entertainment that I have around me or I provide. And we can link that to what we've been talking about, the Sabian symbol, health and well-being of my family line, right? So Virgo really, the new moon in Virgo really encourages us to look at with discernment, which is the word of the day, it will be the word of the episode, but with discernment looks at what is it that is healthy for me and what is it that it's not, on any level that you want to apply that. If you want to apply that to your body, have a look in your fridge. What is it that you actually have? Do you have your greens? Do you have your veggies? Do you have your, fruits? Or do you have a processed packet of food and, bottles of soda? This is what you're feeding yourself, right? If you want to look at, emotional level, have a look at the entertainment and people around you. Are you feeding yourself with crime TV and horror movies and, having people around you who are keeping you down, and the conversations that are, around you? Again, those are the conversations with really low quality, because this is ultimately what you're feeding yourself, what you're feeding your emotions, what you're feeding your subconscious. You can do the same thing using the Sabian symbol energy on this particular new moon on the 21 degree of Virgo. You can look at the health of your family. And if you want to look at with what I love about Virgo is that there is no judgment there. It's that kind of clean surgical, application of Mercury. What is healthy, what is not healthy? There is no judgment about the not healthy. It's just it has to be removed so the healthy one can survive. The same way the surgeon would do with a, unhealthy tissue, it would just with a scalpel remove unhealthy tissue. The same way, back in the day when we stored our grain or our fruit, if there was one which was moldy, you would have to remove it so the whole harvest wasn't spoiled. This is the attitude that we can apply to our lives. Have a look at your history, have a look at the family line. What are the gifts that you're bringing? What are the stories that are empowering, creating, give you wings? And what are the stories that you want to cut out? There's a beautiful story that my one of my girlfriends shared with me, and I don't have permission to share the whole story, but what she said, and was so powerful. And again, we're talking about Virgo that was ruled by Mercury, so it's communication. She said to herself when she was in a time of crisis, "This is not going to be my story. My story or my family story, it's not going to be my story. This is not what I'm going to pass on to my children." And she turned that around. She turned the family history that was repeating itself. She turned that around. Whether it was conscious or unconscious, whether it was magical, it created that, if you will, magical barrier in her family. Uh, she said that consciously, she said that with power and conviction. This is not going to be my story. That's it. That's the discernment. I understand the story. I don't want to carry it on. And I'm making that decision to do that. And I think this is where I'm talking when we apply Virgo with that precision, we can really create more health and wealth and abundance in our lives on so many layers, on so many levels.
Yeah, I love the precision element of Virgo. It can really just cut in. At times, it can feel perhaps a little unfeeling, right? As we're using the mind, as we're kind of taking a laser focus to decide what is shadow, what is health, what do I need to have a sense of order. But there's very much that element of precision. We're looking for how to bring improvement when we're working with the Virgo archetypal energies. And improvement often means first I must find out what is not of quality, what is not in order, what is not working to optimum efficiency. And it can feel like fault finding. Sometimes we can get caught up, I think, in the shadow side of Virgo with imperfection or perfectionism and fault finding. But really, if we stay with it, and as you mentioned earlier, stay out of judgment and just follow it, we can like have that laser focus in terms of what works, what doesn't work, what changes, how do we adapt? It is a mutable sign, it likes to change. How can we make things work better going forward so that there is more order instead of chaos, so that there is understanding, so there is improvement? And I think also with Virgo, I just always come back to this idea of quality. Virgo wants to make everything of a higher quality. Virgo ultimately wants to improve our quality of life. Virgo wants to improve their own quality of lives and serve to improve the quality of life for others. And how we define quality is very personal, but getting there is often looking at what is holding or hindering us from experiencing that quality. So I love having the Virgo new moon. Obviously, I am the resident Virgo of our trio and numerous planets there. So I really resonate with this a lot. But I think there's so much work we can do since it is a new moon. And we've discussed so many times, new moon is where you plant the seeds, bring this into your body, absorb this into your psyche, into your unconsciousness. What is the work that we want to begin? Because, like other earth signs, Virgo is about work. Can we make this sacred work, spiritual work, work for the betterment of our health, work for the betterment of our life? You know, often the focus on organizing that Virgos get stereotyped with. It is a thing, you know. Yes,
Mhm.
I did once win the organization in 5 minute contest at my local office I worked at. They had a mess. They had a demo office, and they had organizers, and you had to like get everything organized as fast as you could. And yeah, I won. Not surprising, but the idea is this wanting a sense of if things are in order, I have a healthy foundation, I can do more. I can go further. My work can be deeper. And I'll stop talking about Virgo for the moment by saying, you know, if you look at the constellation of Virgo, she has her wings, right? All the mutables are double-bodied. Virgo represents the idea of being spirit and being human simultaneously. We are a spirit having a human experience. And so the ultimate, I think, vibration or goal that Virgo energy aspires towards is helping us to blend those and be both of those while we're here. So how do we make our work more sacred? I hope that this Virgo new moon plants seeds for all of us around that.
I love that. I feel like you're always trying to elevate us, and I'm just going to bring us down.
No, I
For
love
me,
talking about the shadow too. It's just you usually beat me to it.
um, the one thing I will just add to Virgo, with the organizing, and again, I have my midheaven in Virgo, so I know a little bit about the good list and good organizing. Um, Virgo is opposing, so as a sign on the zodiac wheel, it's opposing Pisces. It's opposing the ocean of chaos, the primordial kind of chaotic waters of beginning. And I sometimes feel like, with the strong Virgo energy, the organization thing is around creating or trying to embrace the chaos. And sometimes actually it's just good to let the chaos slip. Or one of my favorite examples of Virgo Pisces is from Friends, where Monica had that naughty closet, that kind of really messy closet. Monica being the most organized and clean out of all of them, and yet she had that kind of chaos there. And I think this is extremely healthy for Virgo, having one space in your life when you allow for the flow of chaos. And when I mean chaos, I don't mean the chaos and destruction. I mean for that messiness and, and just that kind of primordial energy that brings something to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, as much as I do like a good spreadsheet, a good checklist, and getting organized, I
But
think I'm learning as well that there has to be a space in my life for chaos.
but isn't that often the motivator? You know, it isn't being organized for the sake of being organized. It's about finding ways to work with the
Yeah.
chaos, to bring
Yeah.
organization to. And we discussed this actually 6 months ago when we did our full moon in Virgo. I was listening to parts of that this morning. I kind of wanted to see,
Mm,
where were we at 6 months later, and what came
mm,
to light then that maybe we're resolving or wrapping up now. Because I find that the new moon and the full moon in the same pair in the same sign,
yeah.
often echo each other in some way, right? That what we
Yes.
start now will be coming to light in 6 months, and what comes to light in 6 months, we may be resolving or wrapping up at the next new moon.
Mhm.
And it was interesting because we were talking, you, me, and Anne were talking about that a lot about the needing to have chaos in our life somewhere, not trying to
Yeah.
clean it all up, but recognizing that we need to work with the chaos. And if we can bring some structure that allows the chaos energy, the creative energy to flow, right? That's a
Mm,
win-win. But often it's sort of
yeah.
the one side predominates the other until we find that sweet spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's look at our chart, I guess, and talk about some of the aspects that are happening with all this lovely Virgo new moon energy. Give me 1 second while I pull up our chart of the new moon. All right. So here's our chart. September 14th, for those here in the States, 8:39 p.m. We have it on an Aries wheel, so you will have to set it to your local time if you want to see what houses are impacted for you. But so we're not looking at house energy, we're just looking at the planet signs and those aspects. And we see that we've got the new moon happening at 21 degrees of Virgo. And opposite the wheel, there's Neptune, 26 degrees of Pisces, and currently in retrograde motion, as is almost everything this month. So let's just start off by talking about that. You were mentioning, Monica, as we were wrapping up talking about Virgo, the polarity between Virgo and Pisces, and here we see it. We've got a sun and moon in Virgo trying to bring order, structure, and opposite is Neptune trying to dissolve those structures and bringing a lot of the gray area of the ocean of emotion, the Piscean, tides, and sometimes may feel like waves. And so there can be a interesting tension. I think with oppositions, a lot of time the point of the opposition is to help us define and clarify what is coming forward and what we are supposed to be working with. Helps us to maybe see if we're too far into shadow or if we're not far enough into the strengths of something. And often with an opposition, this can present in terms of people or events in our outer world. So it certainly can be an internal dialogue and experience, but I find a lot of times it's my internal dialogue experience about that person or that event. There is something outside external that is shaking us up, that is rocking the boat to make us perhaps see the bigger picture, to see what we are not looking at, and to find the balance point. Because I think of the opposition as the seesaw. And as a kid, you'd always do that game of how many people do we need on one side to balance out person on the other side and get to that like equilibrium where we're not moving. So I think of it that way. And it's really interesting to me that order, quality, work, efficiency, precision on one side versus let it go. We can all turn into Elsa, I think, in this moment and start singing Let It Go, from Disney, that there's this energy of embracing a little of the chaos and the flow, and that's often where the spark of inspiration comes from about what do we want to give structure to? How are they going to work together? And I think with Neptune, so often it's really about what needs to dissolve away. Where's our ego overly attached to things need to be this way, this shape, this type, this form? Well, maybe we need to let some of that go so we have space for something new to come in. Right. And then the other aspect, and then I want to hear your thoughts, of course, Monica, but I'll just throw out while we're looking at the major aspects with the lunation, the other one that kind of jumped off the page for me is that there's also simultaneous with this opposition, there's a grand trine in Earth. Yay. So we've got the earthy energy of Virgo at 21 Virgo, making a trine to Pluto at 28 of Capricorn, who, by the way, has stationed and is barely moving. So it's a very profound, strong Pluto. And they're both making a trine to Uranus at 22 of Taurus. So very impactful, these outer planetary energies trining each other, trining this new moon. And I feel like there's this almost passing the hot potato, passing the baton of I need to be efficient. I need to improve my quality of Virgo, handing it to Pluto saying, yeah, we need to shine some of that precision light into the darkness, into the shadow, into the fears, passing it on to Uranus saying, and we need to break through and have some change. And it might incorporate a little bit of chaos to get there. And sort of the three of them just passing this energy round and round if we're brave enough, to step into it. It's that with that Neptune, I just think about the last time the summer was not so hot and I went tubing. And tubing in Texas means that you ride some rapids. And there's one place where you go down a chute. And a lot of times when you go down the chute, when you hit the water, it's not unusual for the tube to flip. And mine did. And, and so I went under the water and I'm trying to get up and I finally just grabbed somebody else's tube. I couldn't find mine. My hand went in. I apologize later if I was inappropriate, but I'm like holding on for what I felt like in the moment was dear life, but probably wasn't. And then there's the get on your tube and then, able to move forward now and go down this beautiful experience of riding the river. So yeah, sometimes when we're riding the river, it's placid and calm, but sometimes we get stuck. We need a little turbulence to get us moving. And I don't, that's the image that kept coming to me as I was sort of looking at this. What do you what do
Yeah.
you make of our lunation aspects?
So, when we're talking again about opposition, what I love about the wheel and the way I actually look at the zodiac wheel is, for me, there is no opposition because it's not like one against another. Everything is within a circle. So I always think about those signs opposing one another more of a like a paradox. We need to integrate both of them. But how do you integrate black and white, light and day, and things that technically are opposing one another? And the way I always think about that is a little bit like the yin and yang symbol, when you have this black part of the symbol with the white dot, and then white part with the black dot. In that opposition there's something of you, and in you there is something of that opposition. And the way I think about Virgo, and that will be a really strange metaphor, but the way I think about Virgo and Pisces is the metaphor for me, it's a dance.
Mm,
You need to learn the steps. So if you learning rumba or cha-cha or salsa or whatever else takes your fancy, you need to learn the steps. You need to know 1 2 3 and 1 2 3 4 or whatever that is. You need to learn the basics, the footwork, how you present yourself, where are the spins, what's happening. But the moment you learn the structure and the moment you organize that, Virgo, you need to let go, to have fun. You need to be in a flow. Forget about, 1 2 3, and just feel that flow. And I feel that's how, for me, Virgo and Pisces energy, when they work well together. And again, going back to what we've discussed, last time, is you're creating the structure for the energy just then to flow. And I think whatever passion you have, you might be an artist, right? You're not an artist just because you splash some paint on a canvas. You do your studies, you learn, whether you go to university to learn the basics about how to prepare the canvas, which techniques to use, which tools to use. You're learning the structure around it. You're learning the earthy side, the discernment, which one do I need to use. Whether it's a dance, you're not going to use a cha-cha steps when you're dancing salsa with someone. So again, you need to learn the structure, you need to organize yourself. But you do that to experience that joy. You do that to experience that flow. When you're in the flow as an artist, um, and again, when I say artist, I talk about all of us. We all have that artistic flair somewhere. It might be when you're cooking. You've learned the cooking, you've read the cookbook, but then you're being artistic in the kitchen. You know the spices so well, you just go with the flow, and you know what needs. That this time you need a little bit more salt because something might be too tough, and the salt will help that. Or you need an extra spice because today you feel that way. That's how I feel about Virgo and Pisces. So I don't know if that metaphor
oh,
helps.
yeah, it's beautiful because you're right. It is about learning the structure and then letting it go and following, your partner, right? And following each other's signals, like letting a little of the chaos and the flow and that rhythm. kind of lead and responding to it. And I love that because I think I do agree with you that a lot of times when we talk about the opposition, people assume it must be oppositional, and it's not. You know,
Mhm.
it's an unfortunate that that word has that connotation now because
Yeah.
it is a wheel. We're constantly going around, and the idea is that these are two energies, and if we lock into one or the other, then they are polarized and they pull apart. But really, the goal, I think, is to find that liminal space that's a combination of
Mhm.
both. You know, if we're on a seesaw, for me as a kid on the playground, the joy was I was the one that always stood on the middle. I had one foot on either side. I was at the fulcrum, and I wanted everyone to have balance so that you know you could stay there. And or sometimes we'd get on it without people and try to find that balance point. It's how can you be a blending of both because they're sharing so much in common, right? You know, the energy of Virgo, the energy of Pisces, well, both struggle with perfectionism or idealism. Very
Mhm.
nuanced difference there, but both are also about adaptability, about wanting to be mutable and be changeable
Mhm.
and be in the rhythm of life. So they have so much in common. I but I love that analogy of the dance. I think that's beautiful, and I may have to just co-opt that next time I'm teaching some astrology beginner classes because that's gorgeous.
Thank you. And I think going back to the oppositions, right? You will know exactly when you're in standing in one of the um again taking your metaphor of the seesaw in one of the ends of the seesaw is when you're projecting the others. So if you're actually embracing the chaos and you're like, oh no, that's too strict, too organized, too much. I don't want the checklist. If you're having that negative reaction, you know you're standing, on the side of the Pisces, embracing the chaos, and that Virgo element still needs to be integrated. If you then on the other side going way too much Marie Kondo and way too much like I need structure, I need everything organized, nothing like not one thing can be out of, then you know that you're scared of that chaos. So again,
Mm.
how can you let that into your life so it's not going to take over, but it's going to bring some of that wave and flow and that energy. So I think this is the new moon to play with that. This is definitely the new moon with that Neptune opposition to play with which side of the seesaw am I? Am I in the middle? Can I embrace both of them? Or, am I sometimes it's fun, sometimes you want to go to extreme and see how it feels. But this might be a great new moon to do that with so much, like you say, Kimberly. We have a grand trine in Earth, so we have a potent grand trine in Earth element. So this is where we bring the power Pluto and unexpected Uranus. So it can be powerfully unexpected new moon. And it might be something that will open up or crack open something within you to create a space for transformation. So,
Mhm.
Uranus is that planet that brings unexpected, but it doesn't bring unexpected just for sake of bringing unexpected. It brings unexpected to open us to new experiences, new way of thinking, to transform things and to bring a bit of the word I want to use is enlightenment. And I don't mean that in that kind of spiritual way, but just like even opening you up to a different flavors in your own kitchen. It creates that space where, wow, I've never experienced that, let me explore. So Uranus can bring that moment of unexpected,
Yeah.
um earth, earth shattering. Uranus is still in Taurus, earth shattering, unexpected, kind of ripping the um carpet from under your feet. And Pluto is there to capture that energy and transform. Sometimes we need to break things, we need to rip things off, sometimes we need to dismantle things to create a space for something new. And I think it couldn't have happened at a better energy that the new moon in Virgo, because
Mm.
we can use that discernment, like we said, to say, okay, whew, wow, I got the news, something just happened out of the blue, but I can take a step back. I can use that kind of, like you said, Kimberly, cold detached energy, that kind of precision and I can see, okay, what is it that I really need to cut off and transform, and what is it that I need to embrace and allow that flow of new, fresh energy into my life.
Yeah. Yeah. If you connect the planets, if you draw the aspect lines on the chart, I love to like just see what happens. So here's my blending of Virgo and Pisces. Like the Virgo wants to look at the aspects and be detailed and what's in a tight orb, but the Pisces side of my brain says, and let's just draw some colored lines, connect the dots, right? And what emerges. And so you have this line of oppositional energy. And on top of that, you have that triangle. It looks like the point of a cursor. It looks like the tip of an arrow. It's this idea of what is our target? Where do we want to bring that precision energy? How are we going to move forward? And we talked about this a lot in our last episode that the whole month of September doesn't have a big moving forward kind of vibe, right? Everything is either retrograde or stationing or turning. And so there's a whole lot of pause. Wait a minute. Let's pause. Let's resolve some of our summer things, but let's pause before we start moving forward. And I think some of this could be saying that, well, what do we still need to look at? What do we still need to transform, Pluto? Where do we need to break out, break through, Uranus? And I have the suspicion here that a lot of this is also saying, where is there still a layer of shadow work waiting for us
Mhm.
to kind of do that final, peel that final layer off, if you will, on all the work we've been doing? Remember, even though the nodes have shifted, we're going to have our final eclipse in the Taurus Scorpio cycle next month. So we're
No.
technically we're technically out of the nodal Scorpio Taurus energy, but we're not effectively out of it until we get through that last eclipse in that sign. So what I'm saying is like, is there a final layer of all the work we've been doing over the last 2, 3 years around really looking within and pulling out shadow and facing our fears and conquering things? Well, where do we need to bring our authentic self more fully forward? And what is the fear that is stopping us? And I get the sense that, unlike other aspects we've looked at, which required a lot of soul searching, this to me feels like it's more about what are we going to do? It's the work, the healing, the revelation, all of that comes from the doing. It is earth energy. So
Yeah.
what is that little, thinking of Virgo, what is that first little step that leads to a bigger step, that leads to another step? The step of a thousand miles. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. What is that one act that I can do that's moving me towards and making me then realize that I want to do more? And where can I break through wherever I've been holding myself back? It's that whole idea of be productive, take action, do things. The healing or the resolution comes from the doing, not from the sitting and thinking and pondering and reflecting that we've already done. Like that was important, but now it's time to take action based on all of this. And perhaps we need to take small action before we move forward with everything turning direct in the few months following that kind of move us fast and furious by the time we get to 2024. So I think that's kind of the bigger picture that I see as I'm looking at, the amazing grand trine.
I mean, I do think actually what you're saying is also supported by Venus and Jupiter. So they are squaring at the new moon. They're squaring for the third and final time because of their retrograde motion. They had a two prior squares, one in June and one in August. So now they're squaring for the third and the last time. And Venus gestation direct couple weeks before this new moon. So things started shifting there. So we had a summer of really, like you say, deep diving, going into the underworld with Venus, looking at authenticity. You've used that word. That's the great word for Leo sign. Venus was exploring our authenticity, who we are. Earlier on, going back to that Sabian symbol, I actually wrote that, that royalty, that nobleness, that is Leo sign within each one of us. When you're looking at your sun sign, that's the royal sun sign within your own chart. That's your part of having that nobility, and then that that within you. And Venus just went into underground for 40 days to explore this. So we had a summer of that, squaring Jupiter, getting this better and bigger, as Jupiter does. And at this new moon, they are squaring for the third and last time. So I feel like everything that you said about that grand trine as well, it's supported by that Venus and Jupiter connection as well. They're saying, hey, oi, you've done the work. You can use that tension to your benefit. Those are two benefics and as much as I'm not, fan of calling them that, those are the two planets that really do bring sometimes positive changes and positive opportunities, but we need to still use them. There's still the tension aspect. They are still in a square aspect, that's the tension, but that can be really creative and supportive.
Yeah, and what I
So I quite
like,
like that at the new moon.
what I like is the fact that Jupiter is disposited by Venus, right? Jupiter's in Taurus, and Taurus is ruled by Venus. So if you will, the lesser benefic of Venus has the upper hand in a manner of
Yeah.
speaking, and so I think this is really key to perhaps going back to that idea of there's a cosmic pause that we're all experiencing in some level this month.
Yeah.
Well, what is it you really desire? And I've had this conversation pop up in like almost every reading I've done this month. It's been interesting that in some way we go back to, are you taking time to get in touch with your Venus internally? Have you used the retrograde to really get in touch with what do you desire? What do you really want? Are you busy creating a scenario in the outer world where it's safe for you to bring forward what you want and you'll figure it out once you have the structure in place? No, no, no. We have to start with, what do I desire? What do I want to attract? What do I want in my life? What is it and as you said, Venus has been retrograde. She did her underworld journey in the sign of Leo. So where do you want play and where do you want pleasure? Where do you want creativity and where do you want fun? And how does that affecting one's natal chart in, wherever we have Leo
Mm.
in our charts? And as it squares Jupiter, I think there's almost a stop expanding everything and let's think about what we want to expand. Where do we want opportunity? If we're just chasing opportunity because there's something in front of us, but that's not what I really desire, I have 10 friends who all want me to go out with them. I had recently had like, I don't know how many offers to go see the Barbie movie with all my feminist friends. It was hysterical. And that could have been nice and it would have been fun in a social setting. And what I really desire is to slow down and to be home more. And like this is what I'm needing, that nesting energy. So listening to what Venus is saying I need versus what Jupiter's calling, hey, it could be really good, but okay, but will it exhaust me? Jupiter doesn't like to recognize limits. And then the other thing here, I think, is that kind of dovetails into this, even though it's a little different. What, where do you apply your sense of worth? Do you actually place value, give worth to all the parts of you that come forward when we're operating from a place of fun and joy and living from the heart? Is the things that we create, are they just things that we value and don't think other people will? Are we somehow demeaning or minimizing their worth? I think this tension could also be pushing from the Jupiter side. Let's expand that. Let's put that out. Let's show people. Let's connect with people. Let's expand more the things we actually create that have value or meaning for us personally may have value or meaning for our relationships and for people we have interpersonal relationships with. So perhaps there's also something pushing to go from the personal to more of the, I won't say collective, but more of the interpersonal, type wanting to come through. Maybe that poetry you wrote in your journal that is so beautiful and amazing would have meaning for somebody else if you shared it. Doesn't mean we have to share it with the world. But that idea of using discernment of where do I keep things private and where do I maybe share? Or how do I connect with people? And am I valuing myself and am I allowing other people to devalue me? Those kind of big existential questions, I think, can be floating around right now and probably already came up. As you mentioned, we've had this square twice already. This is the third round. I think this could be the how do we resolve? I think of Venus in her post shadow. Yes, she's moving forward. Yes, things are happening. This is a time of integration. how do I integrate what I saw during the pre-shadow, but maybe didn't quite understand, what I experienced during the retrograde, but it may have been too much to take in all at once, or I'm still processing. Now's the time to process, to integrate, to figure out how I'm going to become one with that and really own what's living in our heart space. How do we bring that forward in our world? So I kind of like this square, even though I know that's a hard aspect. I feel like the fact it's two benefics softens a little bit the harshness of a square, but also the fact that one is in the other sign just means I think they're going to find a way, or we will find a way to make these two energies work together, even if it means overcoming some little hurdles to get there. All right, so we have one more, right, aspect that we said we were going to look at. Certainly, there's more that we could talk about, but for the sake of time, we narrowed it down, and wouldn't be a true Virgo lunation podcast if we didn't talk about Mercury. So Mercury has been retrograde, and lovely Mercury stationed for us on the 15th, hours after, like just within hours of this new moon. So it's literally parked. It's parked in Virgo. We've already talked about Virgo, but here it's all those lovely Virgo energies, how they affect our mind, how we connect the dots, how we perhaps see things, what's going on with the left and the right hemispheres of our mind, how we communicate, how we choose to send those communications out into the world, be it conversations, be it writing, be it video, be it our body language. What are the tools we use to send that information out? And what's going on with, basic transportation in our lives as well. So all of this may have been important and still remains important because even though Mercury has finally stationed, it's in post shadow until early October, just like Venus. So we're still processing perhaps what some of these themes are about. And what I find interesting is as the new moon is happening and as Mercury is stationing, it is opposing Saturn. Right? The exactness of it previously happened, but now we're still within that orb. We're still feeling that push-pull or the dance, as Monica said, of Virgo Pisces, but here with some different players. We've changed, I'm going to use your metaphor. We've changed dance partners. It's like when you take classes and you have to shift. We know the 1, 2, 3, and we know how to like follow our partner's lead, but now we get different partners. And so we have to still remain adaptable about what's going on with my mind, what's going on with the way I think about things, what's going on with some of my internal self-talk. I find that that is so important during Mercury's shifting of directions, is that our self-talk, and we can become highly attuned to the people around us who mimic our self-talk. And again, oppositions often being people in the outer world. And with Saturn, so what's going on with authority figures, father figures, society, authority? What's going on with the culture, the government, the ways we see structure being maintained? What is going on? Where do we want to either support some of the chaos, or where are we resisting that chaos and trying to create order? Are we stuck in the creating order for the sake of order? Are we fossilized? But this is the way I've always done it. I want to change jobs. I need to do step 1, write a resume. Step 2, get on LinkedIn. Step 3 is whatever. Or maybe this time we need to do it differently. Maybe we need to like not do the resume. We need to volunteer. We need to talk to people. I don't know, but is it possible that we've become so fossilized in the pattern that we've created about how we think we exist with others, with society, that we have forgotten that it's a dance and that we're supposed to be enjoying it? And the other thing about Virgo is Virgo can fall into the shadow of workaholism. And I think Saturn also can reinforce that. So if we're constantly striving to be more, to be enough, if we feel that we are not good enough, smart enough, wealthy enough, fill in the blank, we're not enough yet, and we're striving to become more, and we're pushing and pushing to climb that mountain to quote attain or achieve, I don't think it would be surprising to suddenly realize if we're making progress or we've got to the top of the mountain to realize this isn't the mountain I really wanted to climb. That Pisces energy can hit us with, but I wasn't paying attention to, I was so worried about could I do it? I wasn't paying attention to do I want to do it? And maybe where I want to be is at the bottom of that ocean, not at the top of that mountain. So think that's some interesting juxtaposition that we all can be battling internally and externally around the Virgo and Pisces areas of our lives. I strongly encourage people to look at their natal chart and see what are the areas of life that these two houses in your birth chart correspond with, because that's probably where it's coming to life. That's the stage where all of this is playing out. Lay it on me, Monica. I know how you love Saturn. Come on, come on.
Well, yeah, I think by now everyone knows my undying love for Saturn. But I actually wanted to start with Saturn is actually a place of our fears. So Saturn can also indicate in a chart place of our fears. And looking at this chart as well, I do wonder whether or not we could use that energy, the Mercury going direct energy, to actually look deep into our fears, into that unknown, into those, dark, deep waters of Pisces in our chart, wherever that is in your life. So if you were to look at your natal chart, the Pisces waters can indicate the place or area of your life where there is a bit of a chaos, where there is a bit of that flow. And I think with the Mercury energy and the energy of this new moon, we could really look into our fears, the structures that we created around the meaning and spirituality and collective, and see how much of those structures were built out of fear. When we look into collective energy at the moment, it's interesting to see the fears that are actually creating literal walls and structures to actually separate us from one another. And I'm just thinking, if you're up for a deep work on this new moon, that's something that we could recommend. Just looking into what is it in the collective, what is it out there in that Piscean waters that scares you to the point where you actually want to separate yourself, when you want to create the structure that create that separation. And how can you actually create the structures that support the structure and support a healthier workflow? I know
Right.
it kind of sounds super vague. I'm not sure if I can actually bring down that Piscean energy a bit more grounded, but this is the feeling that I have with the Saturn at that 2-degree Pisces, and again retrograding.
Mm-hmm.
So dragging us back into, let's revisit that beginning of Pisces. It's stuck there. It's going back. It's literally just moved a few degrees into the Pisces energy, and it's already going back. It's like we dipped the toe into the ocean. It's like, oh, there is a wave coming. Let me backtrack. Let me go back. But what is it about that scares you? What is it about that energy that you will have to deal for the next 2 years? Saturn transit in Pisces will bring those waves into your life over the next 2 years. So this is a good time with Saturn retrograding, with Mercury looking him straight into the eyes and saying, okay, I can bring my discernment, I can bring my precision. Let's do this. This is a good energy to work with it.
Totally. And I get this image that I keep having is sort of like Mercury and Saturn normally want to work together to build things. How can we build a better mousetrap? There's flooding happening. Let's build a barrier wall. Let's make it
Mhm.
really good. But now that we have Saturn and Pisces, it feels more like how do we dismantle it? how do we take it down? And yes, the water's going to come, but we might need that water to fertilize us or something of that nature. That it's almost as if Mercury opposing Saturn in Virgo Pisces, it's almost as if the work we must do for ourselves feels counterintuitive. It's like you have to sometimes step back to see the path that you need to take forward. And I say that because Saturn's also about time. And so when
Mm,
we have oppositions with Saturn, often it's about obstacles are presenting or delays are presenting, or there's something that is saying to us, I need more time before I can move forward on my goal. And perhaps there's something that has not, our mind has not yet grabbed onto, that our perception is not yet, strong enough. So I
mm,
feel very, very keenly that this is another signature about stop, slow down, pay attention to your inner self-talk, pay attention to your thoughts, discern what is the next step that is right for you, not the one that is automatic or has been conditioned. And that's the other thing for me with Saturn that I think ties into what you were saying about for you, Saturn is often about the fears. I see Saturn as so much about our conditioning that we've gotten from religion and family and society. And 9 times out of 10, that conditioning is from a place of fear. You must do this so you will be successful because I love you and I don't want you to be poor or starving, or it's the fear of the bad thing happening that has created the expectation that this is the good thing, and therefore it becomes this is the path right for you. How often do we hear parents say out of love, I don't want you to suffer the way I did. I don't want you to have the experiences I had about things that didn't work right. And yet, in doing that, they are unintentionally or unconsciously maybe pushing their child in a direction that's not right for them, right? And we start to feel that push pull between what I want for myself versus what is expected of me versus what I expect of myself. So I think here you are totally spot on that the fear isn't just my own fear, it's the fear and breaking it. I'm going against some collective energy here because either the family or the religion or the society has believes that that fear is right and has tried to convince me. So stepping out of it means we're stepping out of it a bit alone, perhaps. And the whole journey of Saturn in Pisces to me feels like it is bringing up a lot of the healing I need to do about not only what's going on in this life, but how it connects to past lives. What is the karmic learning, the karmic message that I need to get either for myself or perhaps on behalf of my family? Going back to how we started with that Sabian symbol, the healing I do in this life reverberates back perhaps to help my ancestors who didn't get to where I'm at to have some healing. Those who weren't able to explore, they didn't have the privileged life to be able to explore consciousness raising because they were still dealing with survival, for example. The work I do now, I certainly hope reverberates back and helps them heal. So I feel like Saturn and Pisces has a much larger energy to it that we can only feel, but it can be hard to describe or to put into very linear Virgoan mercurial words, but yet we feel it and know it's there. So this could feel, as you mentioned, like a wave. The wave may just be a wave, but it could feel like a tidal wave coming. A tsunami is coming. But if we stay the course and we persevere and we develop resilience, very Saturnian words, we can overcome the obstacles and the delays and ultimately move forward towards, some kind of beautiful dream. I believe Saturn and Pisces is going to leave us all in a much better place than it picked us up when we began. That's my Pollyanna spin for you.
okay, so how out of all of those transits and aspects happening at the new moon, what are our tips for this month or for this
Mm.
lunation?
Do you have one to start with, or do you want me to go first?
Go first.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So there's something, an exercise I've done numerous times in different spiritual or personal growth and development groups or things of that nature. And it actually ties into your metaphor, Monica, about dancing, which is think back to when you were a young child. Think back to a happy time, hopefully. You have some happy memories there. And think back to when we were perhaps free, um, uninhibited, that childlike expression of just playful and moving and allowed ourselves to dance. And I think this is a great lunation for some shadow work. So my thought here is, when did we stop dancing? Ask yourself that simple question. When did you stop dancing? And what was it? And is there anything going on now that echoes that kind of limitation that maybe you want to work on, that you want to explore, that we want to heal, that we want to release? Like, use this pause for that. And if you're somebody like me who has that sad revelation of, I don't remember ever letting myself dance that freely, then perhaps go back to, what was my soul experiencing before birth? Trying to visualize, sorry, I'm losing my words, trying to visualize a very Piscean free space where our soul was just in joy, and recognizing the distance we've come and how do we reconnect with it? Because if we've experienced it once, it's not gone. How do we reconnect with that? Those are my big, huge philosophical questions for this new moon. And then, dream it and then get busy, get to work, working on it, because it's a Virgo new moon, guaranteed. Something will present itself in terms of the first step of reforming those connections.
That's awesome. So I don't actually have a practical tip like that. I have a journaling prompt, and it's something we've discussed earlier. If you were at the new moon to sit down and start journaling on, not my story, or this is not my story, or this is not what I desire. We just came through from, like I said, from Venus underground. She's coming through now victorious. She's stationing direct. She's also coming through victorious in her morning glory. What is it that we can do at this new moon to journal and go deeper and say, this is not my story? What is it that over the last, few weeks, over the summer, you review and the desires are no longer there. I no longer desire that. I'm no longer desire that path. It's no longer aligned with me. Or this is not what I value anymore. And I would encourage you to write and journal on, this is not my story. So what is that story? The second tip, and I think that's something that I will actually be doing, not at the new moon, but maybe a few days later, is I will actually surprisingly be in a city that is known for its healing waters. And I will be going to one of those. I will be visiting Budapest in Hungary. And I am hoping to be able to visit one of the famous bath houses. So how Virgo Pisces is that? Wasn't planning that. Just so happen I will be actually visiting, and that will be my treat. So can you treat yourself to some healing waters? Whether it's nice, beautiful tea ceremony, whether it's nice bubble bath, is it something that you can treat yourself to wellness?
And if those don't work for you, or they do and you want more, I highly recommend pulling out your
Hmm.
copy or getting a copy of Monica's Astro Luna journal, available on Amazon and
You.
other booksellers, and starting with the Virgo New Moon section. And I'd be curious to know what our folks out there that are listening, those of you who have joined in our chat and are sitting at home listening, what are the tips that come to you? Because I think so many of
Mm.
our viewers know astrology or are enthusiasts and know enough. What did we say that resonated, and that's what you're going to take and work with? Please put in the comments below. I love to hear and learn so much from what everyone else shares. So Be sure to subscribe, hit the bell, put it in the comments, and we will be checking over the next 2 weeks to comment back on whether or not your tips worked for us.
And we will see you in the next 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us in this week's Astro Chat. We hope that you enjoyed the discussion and would love to hear about anything that resonated with you. Keep the conversation going by posting shareable content on our Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube pages. You can also email us at astrochatpodcast@gmail.com. AstroChat is uploaded every 2 weeks on the Saturday before each new and full moon. Look for us on your favorite podcast platform as well as on YouTube. You can support AstroChat and receive exclusive content by donating on our Patreon page. We look forward to chatting with you all again at the next lunation of the moon.